vision, leadership, workplace-related topics. The Voices of Victory podcast show. Subscribe today. Let's go.
Vision, leadership, self-esteem, workplace-related topics.
Subscribe.
The Voices of Victory podcast show.
Voices of Victory.
Vision,
Voices of Victory.
leadership,
Voices of Victory.
workplace-related topics.
The Voices of Victory.
Voices of Victory. Voices of Victory. Voices of Victory.
It's time for the show. You are now listening to the Voices of Victory podcast show.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mario Di Leone.
Hello and welcome to Voices of Victory podcast. I'm your host, Mario Di Leone, and today we have a very special guest, We have Stephen Volker. We have Stephen today, director, cinematographer, and of course, producer, as I understand it. And Stephen, just feel free to say hello and just tell us a little bit how you got started out. And I believe you got started out with comedies. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started out in film?
Well, you got it. And thanks for having me on, Mario. This is a fantastic program you have and a great way to promote filmmakers. So we do appreciate your efforts. You're pretty awesome at what you do as well with your stunt coordination. So just to give you a heads up, I've been a professional photographer for, over 20 years, since 2004. And probably back in like 2009 or 10, I kind of wanted to revisit the itch to make independent films. I always wanted to make films and didn't really have the opportunity to do so, just with the way I grew up, not being able to really do any extended education and that kind of thing. And photography was the next best thing. So I did that, ran into an old friend and said, hey man, I really want to make films. And he was like wanting to do animation. And we kind of decided, well, animation would cost a lot, but let's make a short film together. And that kind of reignited the fire, so to speak.
That's pretty awesome. What inspired you to really get into it all together? Was that it? Did it start off with that? In terms of inspiration, what really got you going?
Well, when I was a kid, I used to make homemade films. So many of them, I broke my dad's camcorder, which I never heard the end of because, as kids, we didn't have a ton of money. My dad was laid off for many years and he worked in a factory for John Deere and he had a hand-me-down video camera. And of course I broke it, but I used to just love doing that. And I'd get all the kids in the neighborhood together. And then I contacted a public access channel and they gave me a slot and I would put them on there. And that was kind of my thing. And that honestly, the way it all started, this is a true story, is I was visiting my grandparents in Indiana, and I'd found in one of those newspaper ads, somebody was selling an old 8mm film camera. And even though I didn't realize I didn't know where to get film for it or even how to use it, I wanted it. And so my mom, I remember, drove me to go get it, and it was raining out. I remember seeing this little girl standing on the corner. I don't know if she was waiting for a ride or whatnot, but it was pouring rain. And I remember that shot it's still etched in my mind. And, as a photographer, everywhere I look, I see shots, I see images. And it's the same thing with cinematography. And I think at that moment, I really just knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make films. Yeah. And it's just taken me a long time to start feeling like the stuff I'm making doesn't suck, if that makes sense.
Right. You're putting some fun stuff out there, making it real, which is good.
Yeah.
What has been your, in the film industry, who's been your biggest influence or role model in the film industry?
Well, I'd have to say hands down, Peter Jackson was a big influence. When I seen Bad Taste, I don't know if you're familiar with the film Bad Taste. It's kind of like a comedy horror / sci-fi film that he made, and basically he made that in I think 1987. He made it, and he did it in New Zealand without really any help. He built the props, he wrote the script, he filmed it, he built his own Steadicam, he did his own audio, he had several roles in the film as well as an actor. That film is genius. If you haven't seen it, you got to watch it, because that film pretty much launched his career, and he made a series of other silly over-the-top films before he did something serious, and then Lord of the Rings. Yeah. But he lives in New Zealand. There was no film market there, and he stayed there. Same thing with Robert Rodriguez. I love that guy. He basically, with El Mariachi, with what he went through to get the funding, and when he made that film, even after he got done with it, take, he had this little cheap Radio Shack microphone and recorder, and he would record the lines right then and there, and then ADR them. And real cheap garage clamp on the light scenes. He built his own weapons. Nowadays, you might look at his film and go, "Oh, I could make something look." You have to realize back when he made that, the technology that was available.
Yeah.
I mean, just a beat up old film camera with one zoom lens and to conserve film, he was like zooming in and out during the takes to get multiple angles. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I think about when I make a film, because when I make a film, Mario, I'm doing the directing, cinematography, the lighting, the audio, the editing, the color grade, the sound mix. I'm doing it all.
Yeah.
Some of it is just out of necessity, but I've just got this mentality that, if I don't have somebody, I'll do it myself.
You do it yourself, yeah, and that's good. It seems like the best part of your leadership is that you've grown so much in your projects that you now know kind of how to divvy out and delegate those responsibilities because of the fact that you know how they should be done, how they're executed, because you've personally executed them themselves. So what that speaks on is just that ability to share that with other folks, to make sure that it's done to the level of quality that you know and you understand in terms of filmmaking. You know what I mean? Now, my next question for you is, when it comes down to the development of your concept or story, how do you start? Like, do you start with a theme, the character, or just a visual idea, or do you start from an angle, like a shot?
Wow, that's a good question. And to be totally frank, sometimes I'm out in public and I'm doing something and I talk to somebody or I notice something and I go, wow, that's a good starting scene for a screenplay. A guy that works in a pet shop and sells turtles. And then my imagination goes crazy and I go, okay, well, what if he finds this random envelope in a parking lot and it's full of money? You know what I mean? It's like your brain kind of goes in that direction. That's kind of how I think when I write a story.
That's really
if it's for a client, because a lot of the projects I get hired to do are book adaptations, or somebody will just go, hey, I want you to write a script, for my kid to star in or something. Then I have to get really creative.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm writing content that I'm not overly familiar with. It takes a lot of research, but I try not to overthink it.
Yeah.
And all my films kind of have similar, I feel like, angles or themes, but I think that's natural with any writer.
Well, that's going to be your trademark. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not just developing a project, but you're also developing your style, that you might have some, what I call like a visual essence to who you are. You know what I mean? Like, if we take a look at Tarantino, it's clear we can understand like Tarantino will do like these hyper violent kind of films. You know what I mean? Like, where you'll have an essence of your own that you'll step into, which is beautiful. Now, when it comes to practical restraints, or constraints rather, like budget and time, like, you have to be able to balance that creative vision with budget and time. How do you manage that yourself? Like, you're just so used to kind of finagling a lot of that stuff. How does that pan out?
Well, you're talking to somebody that's clearly has ADHD and doesn't take medicine, but a lot of it's just notes all over the place and just making myself work on something a little bit every day.
Right.
Because I once read in a book that a producer is someone that has multiple projects in various stages of production.
Mm-hmm.
That's the definition of a producer. And I think that's me. I mean, right now, I just got done editing a project I shot. I'm waiting on the music to get done. I have another short film I'm doing for somebody in the next couple days.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got a feature I have to shoot in May. And then I've got, I think 3 other scripts I have to write for other clients. I mean, it's just, I'm always doing something.
Yeah.
But I try not to stress out, because if you do that, you go crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I had to do 20 projects in a year, I could do it. I just wouldn't overthink it, because if you do that, you'll go nuts.
Yeah, well, you have support too. And when you have support of some people around you and you're able to delegate that stuff out and you organize it all on paper so you don't have to be bombarded so much, then it works out fine for you. It works out beautifully. Now, when you're casting, like, what's like typically if you are doing certain kind of films, when it comes to the casting process, do you partner up with like a casting director when you're looking for certain actors in certain films? Because a lot of actors do listen to this show and they want to kind of maybe get a feel for what kind of maybe, things that would be requested in the casting process. Like, do you ever have a project where it's like you need a specific type of cast to do a specific type of job? Like, what's that been like?
Well, I think what I tend to do is casting casting directors, I think those are good if you're doing a bigger budget project. And by bigger budget, I'm not talking about Hollywood standard budget, but more like if I was doing a film and I had a $500,000 budget, which I haven't done one at that level yet, then I'd hire a casting director.
Right.
Because a good casting director is going to be 10 to 20 grand minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not necessarily going to get you famous people, but they might get somebody who's a regular in multiple TV shows that's really on the up and up, that is going to add value. But they're expensive. Then you got to pay that actor their fee, and that gets crazy. Honestly, I either work with the same core group of people throughout all my projects. I just rotate them out. So if I've had, let's say I'm just going to make up a fake name, Jack. If Jack's been in too many of my films recently, I might go, hey, dude, you're taking a 6-month break, and I'm going to rotate in some of these other guys. The other thing, too, is I do like to use Backstage quite a bit. Backstage is a great casting website.
Okay, good.
And as a director, it is a little bit hit and miss because everybody seems to go on there. But my tip to an actor would be when you're posting on those sites is don't put 75 headshots. Guys, we don't need to see you with your shirt off and your six-pack. Girls, we don't need the duck lips and the cleavage shots. Just give us a good, clean headshot, and don't put a bunch of softening filters on your skin. A lot of women do that, I noticed, with their headshots. And I don't care if somebody has bad acne. I just need to know what you look like. So when you show up on set, it's not like, wait a second, that's not how you look.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People do that. It's misleading. Also for demo reels, I think it's better not to have clips of like screaming and breaking stuff and dropping curse words. Just put like one clip, 30 seconds from a film you've been in. I don't even want to watch a full demo reel. I just want to watch a clip. I don't want to watch other auditions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So those are tips that I look for. I don't know if that would help anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. It's looking for that emotion, which is really important. And I think that when it comes down to it, and you get somebody who's kind of, stepping into their acting skill, they've been to acting school, they got a little bit of acting chops, and it gives them that opportunity to just work on their craft in the present with you. They're getting that opportunity to work on their craft in front of you. The beauty of that is they get to, listen, there's going to be multiple takes, right? I mean, that's the reality. There's going to be multiple takes, and they get that opportunity and chance to keep working take after take until you guys get like a really good, a good scene and make that come to life. And sometimes they hit it, sometimes it takes a couple shots. Either way, the beauty of it is it all comes together at the end of the day. Now, what's been your biggest challenge? Like, what's been your biggest challenge on the project you've done, and like, how did you overcome it quickly on it?
Well, honestly, it's this next film I'm shooting. I think it's been the biggest challenge, and that is I have animals in it, and one of the animals I need is a turtle or a tortoise. And I thought that would be as simple as going to Petco and spending $50 and grab one. But doing my research, it's like, okay, tortoises and turtles are kind of different as far as one's more land and one's more water. And they're a lot, more expensive. If you get the kind that look interesting, they're more like $300 to $400 for one. And then you got to buy their houses, and, you can't just let them go in a local pond when you're done. So that's been an educational process. So today, I'm a turtle owner, a tortoise owner. But any project I do, I don't overthink it. If I need a grocery store to film in, I don't panic. I don't go, okay, we're going to build this big set. I'm going to keep looking until I find a grocery store.
So you nail one down. Yeah, which is really good. Which is really good. And I've always spoken to you about like peerspace.com, which is really great.
Yeah.
In terms of getting, hard locations that are really affordable. What I like about Peerspace is not so much as what they have, is what you do with it. So, for example, the best spot that I've ever seen was there was a bank vault in New York City, and to film a bank heist, and that is like, it's priceless. It basically brings a level of production value. That's what I think is really to be understood. Now, when you got setback on the, when you have some setbacks during production or technical stuff, how do you do that? How do you play around with that? Do you ever have to like reschedule stuff, or what do you do to bounce back from some of the setbacks you might experience?
Well, I think it's totally normal. Yeah, sometimes you have to reschedule, and other times just the show must go on, and that's kind of how I look at it. Yeah. So every project we do, we have hurdles. The one we did here a month ago was a period piece, and we had this big finale scene, and it was supposed to be outside, and it started sprinkling.
Right.
And I'm thinking, okay, my camera's not weatherproof. And I'm just thinking in the back of my mind, I shouldn't have shot on this big honking cinema camera. I should have used my little mirrorless camera, and it would have been okay. But it's just like, okay, grab that umbrella I brought. Actors, who are overthinking it, want another take. You're not getting 3 takes. You're getting 1 take. Let's go.
Let's go.
And sometimes that's what you have to do is just, crack crack that whip and tell them, sorry, I don't want to hear it. We got to go.
Yeah.
Those are things. Other things we run into is, we've had scenes we're shooting and somebody's maybe keeps walking in the background, or in a store parking lot. Somebody wants to watch and they're sitting there yapping on the phone. Sometimes you just have to wait till they go. And other times you just got to go up and say,
it's like that airplane overhead, right? It's like, all right, we're going to let the airplane pass. You know what I mean? And I totally get it. I was on the set in Harlem many years ago, and I'll never forget it. I'll never, ever forget this, because there was a motorcycle gang, I think about 50 some odd motorcycles, and they were passing by 3 at a time. And every couple of minutes, there would be another one and then another one. And we had to stop production for like 15 or 20 minutes.
oh boy.
Yeah, that was the most interesting one, which is pretty wild. Now, when it comes to approaching the crew and working with the crew, how do you foster collaboration on the set? Keeping everybody together, keeping everybody to kind of like be on the same page? Like, what do you usually do with that?
Well, I think, here's the thing. My sets are a little bit different, Mario, where I typically don't work with big crews. I'll have usually 1 or 2 helpers nowadays, and they're handling things like continuity with the script, wardrobe continuity, props, feeding people, and helping me move around light stands and stuff like that. And that's it. I don't have a traditional AD or line producer or, somebody who's putting out the schedules and all that. I do all that stuff.
You'll do all that. Yeah.
Right. So there's really not somebody there that's kind of like chiming in about how they would do it or, not do it or whatnot. Yeah. But I think too, it's just on a lot of indie films, yes, there's a level of collaboration. And I think it's just whatever you're open to. But I think too that I guess it just depends on what you're doing, right? I mean, if I was doing a fight scene and you're a fight coordinator, right, I have a vision, but I have to trust your opinion on things because that's what you do.
Right.
No matter how stubborn I am, I have to go, okay, he's right. You can't kick somebody that way. You're gonna injure them.
Correct. But, I think like the biggest thing is that when you have like a fight coordinator also that works with you, is that their best positive intent is that they're going to keep everybody safe, and that also means that they have to have kind of a level of comprehension of what they're going to execute, what they're going to execute next. But the fact that it's going to keep everybody safe, including the cameraman, I mean, if they're kicking and they're kicking at the camera, there is a safety issue in terms of spacing that kick towards the camera lens, which is part of it. Now, what's your take on just how the independent film industry has been trends have been taking notice, good trends, stuff that has been moving things forward? Do you have any feelings on that or any pulse on how the industry is changing?
Wow. Well, okay. So, I'm coming from it strictly from
this call will be recorded.
I'm coming from it strictly from a micro budget filmmaker. Okay. So my opinion is different than somebody who's doing something at an ultra low budget or low budget, whatever level. So with that in mind, I'm not so concerned about, for example, like if I make a film and what's the ROI going to be on it, right? Because usually for somebody else, they take it. I don't know what to do with it. Some of my clients do the whole film festival run. Others probably are trying to get this distribution right now. So that's a little bit different. From my own personal experience, when I occasionally going to make a passion project and do get a distributor, it has shifted. 99% of distributors that are out there, I think, are not totally transparent with filmmakers.
Okay.
Now, there are groups on Facebook that call all of them predators. I don't think all of them are. I think there are some good ones out there, and I think some are just trying to make a buck like we are.
Right.
But the way they're doing it is not too cool.
Right.
And and that is that we make these films, and if they do take them on, they're just putting them on the same platforms you could get on if you use like FilmHub, for example.
Right.
And then they're taking all the profits up until $15,000-$20,000, which may be all your film's going to make, and then you don't make anything, and then they own the rights for 10 years. Yeah. Now, with that in mind, does that mean that nobody ever makes beyond that amount of money? No, that's not true. But it's just really hard to make a buck as an independent filmmaker. Yeah. So my advice to people, and this is the path I've always followed, make films that you would want to watch. Don't worry about, trends say horror films still better make horror. Make the type of film you want to make.
Correct.
Do not poo-poo the whole film festival route. Yeah. It is totally worth your time. Even smaller regional festivals that people go, oh, it's not Sundance. It doesn't matter. Yeah. You can meet people there, and people will discover you from those. I've had people discover my work from those, so it's totally worth it.
You may wind up going to one of those and literally getting business cards from people that want to work with you in the future because they appreciate you. They like what you've done. They see what you've done. They see professionalism that you carry, that you take good care of people, they kind of get to know you. And it's like, you know what, let's connect. I'd love to work with you on the next project, be able to actually do that. And it brings us to a very good topic, like what has been some of the challenges with just funding and distribution? Now, obviously we talked a little bit about distribution. Have you seen any challenges with that? And in terms of funding, obviously, listen, kickstarting and raising money is always a challenge, but do you have any challenges of your own that is kind of like, in regards to distribution or funding? Either one.
Well, with funding, because I've studied this extensively myself, even trying to find the secret sauce. And what I've discovered is financing, a lot of filmmakers go about it the wrong way. They try to go to people they think are rich and ask for a random investment. Yep. And in reality, it's like, it's not that simple. And then there's also, there's investment laws that you have to abide by. And
months too. It can take months or years. They're busy searching for 9 or 10 months and they don't find anybody and they lose all the time. I agree.
You got it. So long story short, I think what I've kind of gotten to is if you get money, it's going to come from an unlikely source. That's what I've dealt with. At an unlikely time, it'll catch you off guard and it'll be somebody you already have a relationship with.
Got it.
That's how it always works. I'd say most of the time that's how that works. This whole, there's a lot of on stage 32, right? I'm very active on stage 32 and I don't widely advertise it because I'm not looking for bragging rights, but I'm a moderator in the Cinematography Lounge.
Yeah.
And I get writers that email me every 2 weeks. I'm looking for a producer. You interested? Sure, let's talk. Do you have a budget? No, I'm hoping you'd get all that. Well, don't work that way in independent film land. The studio system, yes, but I think in the independent level, the truly indie level, you have to back your own projects. You have to find your own money because on a bigger level, they're expecting writers to have stuff fully packaged nowadays before they go to bigger company, which means you need to have seed money. So that's kind of the way this stuff works nowadays. And so the next thing would be is find a way to make your film for cheaper, depending on what you can do. So could you do a film for 20 grand or less? And a lot of people go, I don't got 20 grand. I bet you most people, if they were smarter with their finances, could save up 5, 10, 15, 20,000 bucks. It would take a long time depending on how much money you make.
Correct.
Not impossible. Not impossible. And then you don't have to pay anybody back. You can go, hey, this is my 20 grand. I'll spend it how I want. If it flops, no one's going to be pissed at me. If it makes money or goes to Sundance, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I agree with you. I agree. I've spoken to a lot of directors where when they're raising money, and obviously they're going to use that money to buy stuff, right? But there is a way to crunch that same cash that you've worked up. In other words, like being able to not cut corners, but be able to save money with getting locations, being able to save money with the props that you use. And we're not talking about getting a plastic gun because that'll be like safety related issue, but it's, in other words, what I'm trying to say, it's how we use the resource to cut costs so you can actually pay the actors at a decent level. You know what I mean? Be able to give them what they need to do their thing, aside from just the free food that they get, to make sure that they're taken care of, and I think that's an important one. Now, if you had any advice, this will be the last question of the day, is if you had any advice to give to aspiring filmmakers that are going to break into the independent scene, they're going to break into that, like, what would you tell them? Like, if you were going to give them the hardcore, like the secret sauce to it that, when you got your start, what would you tell them?
Boy. Well, I think that it's just I think there's several things I would go by. Number one, always trust your own intuition. Okay, if you take too many people's opinions, including mine, you may not have success.
Right?
And because some people go, well, I don't know what the key to success is. Well, I can tell you what the key to failure is: to listen to what everyone has to tell you.
Right.
And I've had screenwriters try to tell me what works or doesn't work in my script, and it's like these people have never sold a script in their life.
Right.
So you know what I mean? I'm not saying that to be disparaging. It's just you have to trust yourself. But I think as a filmmaker is make films continuously. Don't obsess about your gear, your cameras, and all that stuff. Even to this day, I prefer shooting on little mirrorless cameras over cinema cameras. I've shot on everything. It's just a tool. It's a tool.
It's how you use it. It's how you resourcefully use it and what you get out of that product. I agree.
Right. All the people that are hiring filmmakers, listen to this. Are you shooting on a pro camera? That has nothing to do with anything unless Netflix hired you, commissioned your company to make a TV show or a movie.
Right.
Which this goes into something else. Netflix doesn't take unsolicited pitches.
Right.
Just because you know somebody that works for Netflix doesn't mean they give a crap about your film or your idea.
Right.
A lot of people, they do that. Filmmakers, if you're making a pilot, you're not making a pilot unless a network ordered it. You're making a short film that just so happens to be pilot length. You know what I mean? I think all this terminology people throw out there, it's confusing to people. You know, like I've known of filmmakers who bragged about getting in Cannes Film Festival when it was like, you know, a knockoff of Cannes, and they clearly knew it. You know, like be honest with yourself, be honest with what you're doing, be humble, don't be a know-it-all, and if you feel like you know it all, keep it to yourself.
Right. It's, you know, there's a balance between, and I've always spoken about this on this show, is that, you know, the confidence can actually be like half humble, half bold. Having that boldness, you know what I mean, to take decisions and make decisions in the direction that they're supposed to go, because you're supposed to move vision all the way down to the finish line, right? You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people, and I'm sure you've seen this before, Stephen, is people have very lofty, large ideas, but bringing those ideas down to earth and putting them into practical form to take that single idea and bring it all the way to the finish line, that is very unique, you know? And people get caught up in the lofty trap, the imagination trap, right? Without pulling it down to production. And that's where the rubber meets the road. And man, I just want to definitely thank you. If there's any, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that? They get in touch with you on Stage 32, or how would they do that?
Yeah, you know, Stage 32, hands down. Yeah, connect with me on there. You can also go to folkerfilms.com. It's FOLKERFILMS.com. Fill out the contact form. You know, here's the thing. If somebody ever wants to just talk shop, you can call me at any point. I'm not one of those guys that's like, well, you got to pay me $5,000 and I'll give you advice. I'm not like that. Let's talk. If you need help getting a project off the ground, I'm always all about ideas. If you want me to film something, direct it, whatever, put it all together, you know, you do have to have a budget. It doesn't have to be $1 million, but you have to have something to work with, because no one's going to fund your dream idea. And I even think Kickstarter, and I've done that in the past, I think those days have kind of gotten a little bit washed up too. People have beat that to death. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
Saturated, very saturated. Well, thank you for coming on, Stephen. It's always a great pleasure, and I hope to have you on again. Well, maybe we'll discuss like another topic on another day, which would be awesome. And ladies and gentlemen, that was Stephen Folker, director, cinematographer, and producer. So once again, Stephen, thank you so much for stopping by.
Hey, thank you, man. I think this is awesome what you're doing. So I greatly appreciate what you're doing on
No problem, man. You have a wonderful day. Take care.
You too.
All right.
See you later.
See you later.